So anyone in here that's maybe done kind of personality behavior profile, there is quite a few different ones out there. We are qualified in DISC behavior profiling. It's a very good behavior model that helps create kind of win-win situation in the workplace, especially when companies tend to get kind of conflict in the workplaces. Some people feel uncomfortable having kind of difficult conversations, understanding the character or the personality type that you have that you work with. So it's going to kind of go through it in a lot more detail than we've done before, just to kind of give you an overview of how DISC works in the workplace and how it can be a benefit to yourselves. So first of all, what we're going to cover today is an introduction of DISC and how it works. Why are behavior and personality types really important in the business? What is your behavior type? How to communicate effectively with different behavior types in the company. So thinking about the past and how kind of companies worked, it was very much a command and control kind of scenario. Back in the day, I mean, I've been in employment law for 15 years now myself, and before kind of the way cultures and futures of business have changed, it was very much do as I say, get the job done, kind of go home. So the future of kind of managing isn't about command and control. It's about collaboration, understanding one another, bringing that unit together and working as one. You're looking at functional relationships. Relationships weren't really kind of built. You weren't built in teams back in the day. It was very much silos. So what you would have found is you currently worked on your own. You worked your job description, got your job done. It was kind of more of a tick box exercise. Whereas kind of the future now is very much about understanding one another, what your job entitles, and how you bring that work together. As I said, working together as one. So it kind of understands each other's job role in the market. You kind of understand and shadow what someone would do. A lot of businesses are doing this to kind of help build that one culture, whereas it's a win-win relationship. Compartmentalize. It was very much this is accounts, this is finance, this is HR. You still have that element within businesses. However, an HR person nowadays would understand every single job role in a business. That's how kind of I have worked internally as HR before, is kind of understanding what the sales marketing would do because I would shadow them for the day. Shadowing accounts, it's kind of it's not silos. You're not kind of working on your own, but you are working towards that same goal, that same target as a business, so that everyone can work together and make the growth of the business now. Harmonious thought processes. People are very much about this is the way and this is the way we should do it. It's now about understanding the processes of the business and everyone working in the same way, not one does one and one does another in that sense. So it is fair and unbiased. And masking of behavior. When we talk about the masking of behavior, back in the day, it was very much come to work, get your job done, 9 to 5, go home. The behaviors in the past were very much, well, this is me and who I am. Now it's about understanding behaviors in the workplace and how you can collaborate. For me in the past, I used to find someone that was more kind of, you tend to find these behaviors within a kind of a senior role, someone that's very direct, very black and white. This is how we do it. We need it done now type thing. I'm very much an approach of sit back, understand what I'm doing to get the task done and not put under pressure. So for me, with someone of a behavior of that style, used to be quite overwhelming. Now, because I've done DISC and I understand personality types, you need every personality type or behavior in a business because they're the people that drive the business. They're the people that get results. By understanding their strengths, they understand my strengths, you can then work together as one. So the future is all about self-directed teams, interpersonal efficiencies, blending that work-life balance. People want to come to work, like to work, love the culture of the business, but also want to socialize with people outside of work, whereas that wasn't a thing back in the day as such. People are there, they live and breathe work, and it's finding that work-life balance and blending it together. You'll find that groups are more diverse because your understanding of others and what they do and what they bring to the table. And then the preference of discovery is kind of discovering and how you develop your skills and how you can move your business and your future forward in a business. So let's talk about DISC assessments. So DISC assessments are behavioural self-assessments. It's a tool based on William Moulton, and it's around emotional and behaviour theory, which is published in 1928. Now, DISC is split into four, as you can see. Now, a lot of people may know, well, a lot of people will not understand introverted and extroverted. You can probably tell that I'm a very extroverted person. Now, someone with a D, which is for dominance, dominance is very much, Ds are very about getting results. They're very direct, they're very competitive, they're very driven, and they want an answer now, not yesterday. They need it now. Whereas an I, who is an influencer, they're both extroverted people. However, they're quite opposites in a sense, because influencers are very influential, they're very enthusiastic, they're friendly, and they're really optimistic. Someone with an I could get the same results as a D. However, it's understanding that person and how you drive them to that to receive those, get those results that you desire. So Ds and Cs are very task orientated people. So you'll see our compliance. They're very compliant, they're accurate, they're cautious, and they're very contemplative. Now, Cs, you will normally kind of see someone that maybe works in accounts or works with numbers, figures, books. People that are compliant are very process driven. Whereas your eyes normally tend to deal with the people. They love dealing with people because they are people orientated in that sense. Your S's, which stands for steadiness. Steadiness is sincerity, they're patient, they're modest. What you'll find with someone with the outcome of an S, that they're quite reserved. They'll sit back and kind of analyze the situation before they go and do a task, for instance. Whereas you might find the opposite of that, being an I, they will go and get their hands on and then they learn as they go type thing. So we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. So what is DISC? DISC is the doorway to communication. It's a style of how. It's a uniqueness of each person that extends beyond the DISC model. Therefore, behaviour models should not be referred to as a personality test. There is no such thing as good or bad. Behaviour, when it's in a context, in particular, every person has the potential to win. We all win in different ways. One behaviour is not better than another. Your behaviour is designed of a combination of highs and lows and factors around 50,000 different combinations. So we'll go through those in a moment so you kind of understand it a bit more. Every person has the ability to adapt their behavior profile. Adapting does, however, require an increase of energy. So how long a person can adapt is unique and different to each person. This module will identify your natural tendencies and give you knowledge consciously and adapt to the situation requires. So for me, for instance, I am a I. I very people orientated. When it comes to adapting my behavior would have to be adapted. For example, if I went into a disciplinary meeting, I would have to do a lot of investigation work. So I'd need to use my compliance side and kind of to drive the facts and the figures and the kind of key information in that meeting. I would need to use kind of my behavior of a D. So everyone has factors of all D, I, S, and C, but it's how you problem solve them and how you adapt your energy. So my natural energy is always very high in I. And if I go to these kind of meetings, my energy levels will drop. So it's understanding myself and how I re-energize myself back up to ensure that I don't drain my energy. So looking at the four behaviors, dominance is a D factor. It's how you look at problems and challenges. So thinking about the problems and challenges, the influencer will always handle the people and influence others. The S is for steadiness, and it's how you handle and change and pace yourself. And C is from compliance. It's how you handle rules, procedures set by others. Like I said, for a high influencer, for me to be compliant, I have to change and adapt my behavior. So, and C is a very low factor on my behavior profile. So, what is your preference? As we talk through each behavior over the coming slides, try to work out if you fall on each of these, whether you're going to be high or whether you're going to be low. So everyone will have a bit of everything, but it's whether you think you're going to sit naturally above the line, whether it would be a high energy or whether you think you'll use that as adapted behavior, which would be low. So for me, my influence, as I said, is high and my dominance can be quite low. But for me to be able to adapt my behavior, it has to increase so it can go even higher above the line. So if I go through that in a bit more detail. So dominance is about how you handle problems and challenges. So looking at the kind of keywords that would describe a high D is they're very driven, ambitious, pioneering, they're strong-willed, they're determined, they're very competitive, decisive, and venturesome. Where if you think about the opposite and how low it could be, it would be someone that's using a low D would be cooperative. They'd be quite hesitant as a person. They could be very cautious, undemanding, cautious, agreeable, modest, peaceful, and unrobustive. Looking at a D behavior, sorry, Amanda, could you, the landline, would you mind taking that for me, please? So looking at D's, the most famous people may exhibit D's. So thinking about famous people, you've got Donald Trump. He's very high D. His politics, he gets everything out, the way he delivers his message as well, and how he deals with his problems and challenges is very high D. Steve Jobs, Microsoft. Then you've got Madonna. And then you also have Michael Jordan. They're very high in D behaviors. Looking at influencing, how you handle people and influence others. So looking at the high I's is someone that's very inspiring, they're magnetic, they're very enthusiastic, they're persuasive, they're convincing, optimistic, trusting, and poised. So looking at the low end of an I is how would you describe it? Would be they're kind of reflective, factual, calculating, skeptical, logical, suspicious, matter of fact, and incisive. So famous people that are high in I is Richard Branson, Dolly Parton, Robin Williams, we all know he's a character, and Will Smith. Sorry, we've frozen a second. So looking at steadiness, it's how you change and pace yourself. So with the high descriptions of high S is people that have this behavior are quite relaxed, they're passive, they're very patient. Like I said, they might sit back in a team meeting, kind of listening, analysing. They're resistant to change. They're quite predictable. They're very consistent in everything that they do, always steady and always stable. But when you're looking at the lower end of a steadiness, it will be kind of your opposite, which is your mobile. They're quite active, very restless, impatient, pressurized, eager, they're flexible and impulsive. So famous people that do have a high I or exhibit S behaviors are David Beckham, Diana, Angelina Jolie, and Michelle Obama. So think about those famous characters and their kind of day-to-day behaviors and how those connect. And then your compliance is how you handle the rules and procedures set by others. So thinking about your high descriptions, they're very cautious, you're very careful, they're systematic, they have a very balanced judgment, they're very accurate in what they're doing, diplomatic and tactful. Whereas your low end are quite firm, independent, self-willed, obstinate, opinionated, unsystematic, and uninhibited, arbitrary, and unbending. They won't bend the rule or break the rules for any procedures as they handle those. So the famous people would be Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Albert Einstein, and Jodie Foster. So looking at the behaviors, you'll all have, as I said, a percentage of some. So if you look at this middle line where the 50% sits, anything above the line would be your natural behavior. Anything below the line would be your adaptive behavior. We'll go into that in a little bit of detail in a moment. So anyone that's goal orientated, determined, direct, you'll see that line will go quite high above, with the red being dominance. Anyone that's very optimistic, enthusiastic, outgoing and friendly, that yellow influence will go quite high above the line. So as you can see in this profile, the restless, impatient, hyperactive, fast-paced, that is below, so their natural behavior is below the line, below the 50%. So that's steadiness is quite low, whereas their compliance side on handling procedures and policies is accurate. They're above the 50%, and their quality conscious and consciousness is always working quite high on a natural behavior. So having a little look at these two graphs here, you'll see it's that natural versus adapted. On the left-hand side is your adapted style, and on the right-hand side is your natural style. As you can see, and this person is very, very high on their steadiness. So their steadiness doesn't tend to change whether it's adapted or natural. They have dropped from, so their natural style is 100%. They're always very high using their key skills. Then their adapted style only drops by 18%. So they're very much the same whether it's natural or adapted. So thinking about natural and adapted, for me, my natural and adaptive behavior will be completely different from doing HR day to day in my life to my personal life. So for me, it might be just for me driving down the road. I go from A to B every single day, and it becomes a natural behavior in a sense. But some days there might be traffic, etc. I might have to use my adaptive behavior and think about different routes, etc. But natural and adapted from day-to-day life, if it doesn't change, you're quite consistent in your personal life and your work-life balance as well. My influence is very, very high. It doesn't change. However, what you can see in this person is that their natural influence of being around people orientated is very, very high on their natural personnel. But when it comes to their adapted style, it drops below the 50%. So that might be because they're adapting in their work life and they're less sociable with their work colleagues, for example, or the natural might go up more when they're outside of their work life. So it all just depends on how you're dealing with people, what environment you're in, and how much that would adapt. But this will give you kind of an overview of how much you do on a day-to-day basis. Now, this person also, their adaptive style, they have to use their more dominant style, as that is above the 50% line. But their natural isn't that. So that would drain their energy. They must work really hard to be quite direct, make decisions, be fast-paced in the environment where they may be working in. So that kind of gives you an overview of your natural versus adapted. So I would get you all to get a piece of pen and paper. Everyone get a piece of pen and paper. So what you'll find here, I don't know if any of you have got a pen or paper in front of you and you do want to try this. So with your hand that you would normally write with on a day-to-day basis, if you do your signature and you do it, how quick can you sign it and how accurate does your signature look? If you then swap that pen over, if you score that to 1 to 10, you swap that pen to your other hand that is not your dominant hand, what would you score that? Does that signature look the same? So that is your natural versus adapted. That's how much energy you put into trying to do that signature. My signature looks nothing like my right hand signature. It looks like a child's probably drawn it. So yeah, it's how much energy, or it took a lot longer for me to do it. It's how quick your natural versus adapted can drain that energy or that focus into that task. So, your natural behavior is normally your gut reaction, it's your subconscious behavior, and it's the least changeable. So, it's what you're really tuned into, it's what you're plugged into. It's what you are like when you can be you, or when you are less under stress, pressure, or fatigue. So it's what you would naturally go to on a day to day. What is your gut telling you, your subconscious versus, yeah, let's go with it. We're not, and you can make clear, quick decisions. Your adaptive behavior would be kind of like putting on a mask. So it's reaction to present circumstances. So you might feel uncomfortable, I don't know, holding a particular meeting. You might have to put on a mask, like a good cop, bad cop type situation. You're more conscious about how you deliver, how you speak in that meeting. This will obviously drain your battery pack. It will, because you are using your brain and your consciousness a lot more, and it will measure the most common pattern of which you adapt towards. So that is what your adaptive behavior is. So when you're at 0%, you can obviously no longer use your mobile. If you think of it like this, when your energy is at zero, you no longer can find the energy to use your adaptive style, and will go to your natural style immediately. So if you think about, you're preparing for a meeting and you've got a colleague that is a particular behavior that you kind of have to adapt your style to when you go into that meeting, you'd be prepared. You'll think about what you've got to say. However, if your battery is at zero, you would not be able to adapt your style, because your natural style will always come through, and you won't get as much success out of that meeting as you probably plan to, because you have no energy. So make sure you charge your energy safely by adapting. Adapting is good. It's not about being able to adapt, which could then end up in conflict. So thinking about as well yourself, how do you recharge? We'll go into recharging your energy as well. For me, I have to. There's certain ways that I recharge my energy if I'm drained. One is I need to boost my energy back up. I have a very high energy, and things like listening to, I don't know, positive music, or for me, I like paddle boarding. I will go out on my paddle board. That will give me the energy to be around nature, or it might be just a drive in the car. There's certain things that reboost my energy back up for me to be able to then adapt, or use my adaptive style to go back into a meeting. So, can behavior change? Yes, of course it can change. Everyone can change their behavior type, but it's how you understand it. So as you can see here, you've got your core motivators and your core beliefs. Your beliefs will always be your beliefs. Not everyone has the same beliefs, but your motivators can change throughout your life, especially if you've had something, I don't know, massively changing in your life, like, I don't know, selling a house or buying a new home. You might be then particularly, you've got goals within that to then motivate you to achieve those particular goals. So say for instance, I don't know, my motivator was to, I don't know, buy a specific car. That specific car, I really wanted to achieve. So that's my key goal. So me achieving that using my natural style will always be fine. But however, if that changes then in life, say for instance, I don't know, I had a family, that car was a sports car with a convertible, it only had 2 seats. I then had children, I'd need a family car. That motivator can change. Your belief system will always change as well. So what you believe in and what your core values are. If that then changes, your motivators will change and your natural style will change. So if you think about it, that water is above the natural style line. So it's below the water level. Anything above is how you then adapt and how you then achieve that. So for day-to-day life, as I said, I might be driving from A to B. That's a natural style. For me to then adapt that, because there's been a major accident on the motorway, I have to think about how I adapt, how I get to work. Every day you're adapting in life, your behavior will adapt in life. But think about it, and I'm just doing it in a generic basis because I haven't got a scenario here. But think about that if you're going to a meeting. I don't know what type of businesses we have in this room, but for me, being in HR, my natural style is always high energetic. So I'll be out on the road training people, development. That's what brings my energy up. For me to go into a disciplinary meeting, I have to adapt my style to become more C, compliant, understanding processes, and also decision making more D. So my C and D then have to go up above the line, whereas naturally they would sit below the line. So it's kind of understanding those in more detail and then making sure that your battery is the right percent to get the right outcome and result so that there isn't any conflict of interest in that meeting. So adapting to a high D score. So remember, with a high D, you've got clear, specific. You have to be if you're speaking to someone with a high D, you need to remember to be very clear, very specific, and to the point. No fluffy talk, no kind of talking off of point. You need to stick to the key information that needs to be delivered during that meeting. Stick to business. Don't talk about personal life. Don't talk about anything else. Just stick to business. Come prepared with all requirements, objectives, and support and materials because they'll want that during that meeting. Plan your presentation for efficiency. Ensure that you don't kind of go off track. Ask specifically, preferably what questions rather than how. Provide win-win alternatives and options for decision making, and then provide facts and figures around probability of success. They want to know key information, how you're going to achieve this, what's the outcome going to be. Okay, decision made, let's go. Adapting to a lower D would you always have plenty of information and context, check for understanding. They would have to be patient and listen to you. They would have to allow them to ask questions and provide a way forward. Ensure they are comfortable and they could provide clear deadlines and milestones. So someone that's D, that's got a high D, adapting to someone with a lower D, this is the communication, this is how they'd need to kind of work to ensure there's no conflict. So adapting to a high I, you need to prepare for interactions that support their dreams and intentions. They're very driven in achieving their goals through their dreams and intentions. You need to allow time for relating and socializing and ask for their opinion. They like to get involved. Put details and actions and items in writing because they can kind of go off and forget to write those. So they just need to make sure that they are kind of tangible and that they have got them actioned. Provide ideas for implementing actions. Use enough time to stimulate upbeat and fun conversations. Provide testimonials from people they see as prominent or important. And then offer immediate and extra incentives for willingness to take takes. And then adapting to a lower I, if you have if you're talking to someone with a lower I, you need to allow for personal space. Stay on point and avoid excessive chit chat like a higher I would. Respect their process. Draw them out without being intrusive. Take your time as they may be slow to warm up to strangers. Use testimonials and evidence that directly address their concerns. Be sure to highlight where risk can be avoided. So then looking at a high score for S and steadiness, present your case logically in soft, non-threatening way. Patiently draw out their personal goals and ideas. So it's kind of more support in that sense. Guide them. Listen carefully and be responsive. Show sincere interest in them. Ask specific, probably how questions rather than what, like a dominance person would. Provide personal assurance and guarantees. If a decision is required of them, allow them time to think about it. You can't ask them to make a decision there and there. Someone that was dominant would. Someone with an S would like to sit and reflect and take that time to think about their decision before they deliver. Start with personal comments to break the ice. Adapting to someone with a low S score will keep the conversation moving. Emphasize the change in opportunities, move on to something else if you sense kind of disinterest in the conversation that you're having. Be straightforward and upfront, emphasize the new and different, be flexible in your approach, and ask for decisions quickly. So they're your kind of opposites and how to communicate. So adapting to a high C score and thinking about this, as I said, clients and how to overcome problems, prepare your case in advance, approach in a straightforward, direct way, build credibility by looking at all the slides, present specifics and do what you say, draw up an action plan with scheduled dates and milestones. If you disagree with prove it, you need to provide data of why you disagree. Remember, C's are very data analytical people. Provide information and time they need to make a decision. Whereas your low end of the score, they need to be prepared for anything. Give them freedom to explore. Talk about new developments or groundbreaking discoveries. Be open-minded to new ideas and approaches. Provide several opinions. Encourage creative solutions. Recognize the facts and figures on everything in decision making. So my C is quite low, and I don't always go on facts. Well, I have to in HR, obviously, but the girls have high C's in our company. So it's understanding your team and what strengths they have. They're high C, I'm a low C. So certain things they will do, certain things I will do. And that's how we collaborate and work really closely as a team, because then we build as one and we drive our performance forward even more and the growth of the business. So have a little think about it as we've gone along. Where do you think you would sit? Where would you be in your D, I, S, and C? Do you think you're quite high above the line? Do you think you're quite low below the line on certain areas or behaviours? And think about it from a natural, if you can, natural and adapted. Is there certain things that you struggle to communicate or struggle to have? I don't know. A lot of people may have struggles in having those conflict of interest conversations where they're having difficult conversations with people. That means your I might be very low. And like I said, is understanding yourself. So I've got a little quick kind of screen. Amanda, could you let me know if this is actually working, please, for me, and you can hear the volume?
Yeah, can hear that.
Perfect.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count?
Amanda, did you have a go at that? Did you?
Yeah, I did.
How many did you count?
14.
14. Okay. Did you see anything else?
Well, apart from all the other players doing the same thing.
Did you see this?
The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla?
No.
No?
No.
No. Did anyone else see this gorilla? Watch. It just, that little task there is just a little bit of fun,
This
really.
video is from research
It's
by Daniel
kind of
Simon
just
and
to
Christopher
make
Shepard.
you realize that when you're solely focused on something, that you can miss things. Where's my presentation go? I mean, me being, well, I mean, I've done it quite a few times, but the first time I ever did it, the first thing I did was see the gorilla, and then I was completely lost counting the balls. And then the second time I did it, I counted the balls for 15 and then completely missed the gorilla. So it just shows you when you're kind of focused on something. Where is excuse me a sec, sorry. When you're completely not, why is this not now working? Where is, now I've completely lost my presentation. There we go. Yeah, so if you completely lose your attention and focus, you can completely, from an observant perspective, miss things. So yeah, it's just kind of a bit of fun and a bit of an exercise. So talking about DISC profiles and future sessions, obviously from a DISC profile perspective, we are accredited to complete that. The whole team is. There's a cost to the profile, and we also do kind of a whole group activity. Or you can do it on a one-to-one basis and kind of find out. We'd mentor you through your profile once the profile comes through, kind of understanding your strengths, your weaknesses. Well, not strengths and weaknesses, because like I said, nothing is bad and everything is good. But every company needs multiple colors above and below the line, because that's what makes your business as one. But it's understanding yourself. Like when I got my profile, understanding myself and how I work really worked well with the team. So like in my old company before HR Prime, I used to think people that were quite like dominant and quick decision making, it used to kind of really overwhelm me being a high I, because I just think, how can they make a decision so quickly? Why are they putting so much pressure on me? But then once I got to know the person and understand their strengths, they understood me as a person as well. And we adapted our styles to work together. And that just made our work relationship even stronger for us to then perform and move forward. So it can cause, some people would think, oh, it's very much conflict, or it's not. It's about understanding each other and working together as one, and using those tactfully to push the business forward. So obviously there is a cost to the profile, which we can discuss and either complete on an individual or a group basis. But please do join our mailing list via the form or email at team at HR Prime, or follow our Eventbrite or YouTube channel. Does anyone have any questions for me?